Hey, good afternoon, everyone. How's everybody?
Hi.
Good. Hello.
Hi, good afternoon, Antonio. Good afternoon, Aura. I see four people in the collaborate session, and let's see how many are in the. I see seven people in today's forum. Actually six because I have two of the posting. Two of the posting are mine. Um, hoping I just hope everybody will join uh, in the shortly in the next couple of minutes. Now, so in our last class, so we have um, I was talking about the how promissory note works, right? I was talking about the way the promissory note works, and let me use. Okay, um, so uh, promissory note actually plays a very important role in the short-term financial market. And remember, I told you short-term financial market is called money market, right? Right? It's the short-term financial market. In the money market, right? Um, because the way the promissory note works is through a process called factoring. Okay. And uh, mathematically, actually, it is called simple discount. I mean, in financial mathematics is called simple discount. And I believe I talked about how the factoring works, simple discount works in our uh, last class. So let me quickly, because I posted, right, October 18th session recording. Let me just briefly check. Abroad from a round of first round of sale and then first round of uh, out of it buys you up 1,000 units. Uh, Best Buy, okay, days or 30 days or 60 days, if they have that uh, uh, option open, right? Um, that will leave them, but I have to call it a day today. Okay, so I didn't actually go into the mechanism. I didn't go into the mechanism, but I just explained why it is used, why promissory note is used. Now, so think about it. If the seller, so buyer, buyer, in this case, Best Buy, paid with promissory note to the seller. Promissory note. And the seller uh, Seller received promissory note, let's say Dell, and the amount of the promissory note is, because we assumed 10,000 Model X or 1,000 model. What was our assumption? Right? So 1,000 times Model X, 1,000 Model X computer, and 1,000 Model X is, Model X is $300. So times 1,000, right? So total amount, total principal, face value of the promissory note is 300K. And we assumed, plus 3% interest. I normally don't write it this way. 9K, which is interest at 3%. Okay, and the promissory note is for 90 days. Let's say. Then so think about it. That means the maturity value of the promissory note is maturity value of the promissory note is 309K, right? If they hold it until maturity. But I've been telling you, most companies, especially small companies, are constantly running into a cash flow crunch, right? Even the large corporations can run into a day-to-day cash flow crunch. And I've been telling you, even that the Chinese property developer Evergrande, it's a huge company, it's a large corporation, but they ran into, the default is something that can happen if you have less working capital, less current assets than okay, I will, as a side note, I will write here. In other words, what is current liability? Current liabilities are the payment obligations that you must make, right, within 1 year. So that doesn't mean everything has the same, all those, current liabilities, all those line items in the current liabilities mature at the same time. Some of them, in other words, in the current liabilities, some of these line items, they all mature within 1 year, right? That doesn't mean that they, but some of them, some of it may, there must be something that matures in 2 days, or in 1 week, or in 5 days, or in 1 month, or in 2 weeks, right?
The maturities of these payment obligations are diffused. It's spread over all, 1 year time frame. So, and small companies are constantly under a cash flow shortage, right? They face very tight cash flow situation, and then what? But the total current liabilities are, of course, total number that must be paid within 1 year. And what is the source of the funds to pay these current liabilities? Well, that's the current assets, right? Obviously, from current assets, you pay current liabilities. So the bottom line is current assets must be greater than current liabilities, right? Did someone? Okay, no problem, no problem. Yeah, I mean, sometimes, it can happen. You can't hear anything? You can't hear anything? Check your check your audio setting. Okay. Yeah, it's an isolated. I mean, if you can't hear me, it must be an isolated problem because isolated issue. Uh, Everybody else can hear me fine, right? Everybody else can hear me fine, isn't that right? Everyone else can hear me fine. Yeah, Aura, yes, good, thank you. Uh, so, oh, okay. But please, yeah. Oh, well, but then you can hear. I mean, maybe it's the microphone, right? Um, Sorry to hear that. Sorry to hear. Okay, you need to adjust your speaker volume. Okay, so let me get back to. So the point is, um, even the big corporation, a giant corporation like Evergrande can still go bankrupt, can still default if this is not the case, right? If it is like this, they can go bankrupt, right? So you might say, oh, then as long as uh, then as long as it is like this, current assets is equal to, greater than or equal to current liability. Then are we okay? No, no. The rule of thumb is uh, uh, if we if that's equal, if it is like, think about it, then this ratio will be 1. If this ratio is 1, what does that mean? Current assets is exactly the same as current liabilities. But this is not good, right? This is not good. Because think about it. If you barely have the same, exactly the same amount of current assets as current liabilities, that means after paying the liabilities, current liabilities, after paying off, you have no more current working capital left. If you have no more working capital, then how can you support your operating activity or your production activity? There is no way you can support your production activity. You must be able to support your production activity to generate the next round of revenue, which will sustain your company. But if you can't do that, if it is like this, then you can't do that, right? So the rule of thumb is this number, this ratio must be at least equal to, greater than or equal to 2. In other words, you must have at least twice as much current assets as current liabilities. Make sense? That way, after paying off all those short-term liabilities, then you still have something left, right? Which is almost equivalent to your ordinary level of current liabilities, right? That can you have left working capital that can support your production activity during the lead time. Okay, I believe I talked about the lead time. But anyway, the point is, because most companies are constantly in cash flow, short-term cash flow crunch, right? When they have received promissory note of with the maturity value of 309K, with with time to maturity of 90 days, with 90 days, then they're not going to sit on it. They're not they're not going to just simply hold on to it. They're not going to hold on to it, right? What happens is, I mean, if they can hold on to it for 90 days, fine, they will hold on to it. And then on day 90, they will present it to the buyer, which is the issuer of the promissory note, and they will collect 309K. But then that's 90 days. 90 days is it's not long term, but it's still long time. Something, and with constant cash flow crunch, this company may even face a situation that where they have to well, they may default on their accounts payable. So most companies generally sell it to the bank. Most companies sell it to the bank before maturity. Usually, they can even sell it to the bank the bank or financial companies that specialize or financial companies that specialize in promissory note or accounts receivable. So when they can even sell it at time zero. In other words, on the very day, on day one, on the very day they received this promissory note, they can sell it to the bank on the very same day. And if they sell it to the bank on the very same day, then the bank is taking over the risk, and the bank will be holding it for 90 days. Right? Makes sense? Think about it. There is always a risk on all financial assets. Of course, a company like Dell or a company like Best Buy would have relatively low risk, right? They would have low risk of default. Their credit rating would be at least something like above triple B plus, right? Triple B plus. They could be like, single A or single A minus, whatever. But they are basically highly rated companies, so their risk is low. But low risk doesn't mean necessarily zero risk. And what if, in our example, the promissory note, promissory note of Best Buy is not that highly rated. Let's say Best Buy is not that a highly rated company. I mean, then the risk is much higher. And obviously, nobody will just take over the risk. I mean, when they sell it to the bank won't pay 309. The bank won't pay this 309K, right? The bank won't pay that 309K. Nobody does that service for free, isn't that right? Because they are taking over the risk, and there must be something, right? Some premium that they have to charge for, so that's called bank discount. So in other words, so suppose they sold it on at time zero to the bank. So the bank is taking over this risk for the next 90 days, and bank will present it. The bank will present it to the issuer, and they will collect 309. So they are not going to just pay out 309. The bank won't pay out 309. They will discount it, and when they discount it, they go by the simple interest rate. It's called, I said at the beginning, factoring is mathematically called a simple discount or bank discount. So here, let's define a few variables. First of all, maturity value. Of course, maturity value is what you can get at maturity. Is 309K in this example, right? And then discount rate, the lowercase d, this is what the bank uses to discount it, 5%. Remember, this maturity value is the result of principal plus interest, and the principal was 300K, right? Remember, Principal is 300K. And they applied 3% interest rate. Interest is basically P times R times T, right? Right? And the R was, interest rate was 3%. Time is 90 days. 90 days is actually 1/4 of a year, but we just simply assumed, and all the rates, think about it, all the rates are supposed to be APR. All the rates are supposed to be annual rate, annual percentage rate. But just for our example, we ignored it. And then we apply that simply for 90 days, 3%, right? But actually, time must also normally time must be expressed as year, because 90 days is 90 over 360, right? So it will be 1/4 of a year. I mean, if this is APR, annual rate, you will have to multiply it by 3% by 90 over 360. Okay, which is, we all know it's 1/4. They will cancel out as 1/4. I mean, not cancel out, but simplified as 1/4, right? But that's normally how you do it. But we just to make our thought experiment simple, we assumed that 3% is not APR, that the 3% is just the rate for the 90 days entire. So under that assumption, that's how we got 309. Okay. And then the bank will apply 5% discount rate for how many days? 90 days. Okay. Again, normally this is all the rates are always APR, right? Meaning always, what you will do is, 5% times 90 over 360, right? That's normally what you would do. But just for the simplicity of our example, simplicity of our thought experiment, we'll just assume that the 5% is just for 90 days, not for annual. So we'll ignore this, and then what the bank will take as for service fee, right? It's not interest, but service fee. It's a kind of service fee, right? For service fee, then they will 0.05, right? And what's it going to be? It's simple. We can simply use the calculator. 309K, I mean, it's 1,000, times 0.05 will be 15,450. It's 15.45K. Right? So that's what the bank takes, and you will receive, it's called, D, and the name, um, B stands for bank discount or simple discount. So that's what the bank takes. And D is called proceeds. I mean, you might, why is it D? I mean, and proceeds and D, I mean, it cannot be acronym. D is not the initial for proceeds. That's fine. Um, D would actually stand for discounted amount from discounting, simple discounting, right? Discounted amount of maturity value from simple discount. And it's called a simple discount because it's the simple interest rate that is being used. Yes.
Can it be called discount rate too? D?
Yeah. No. Discount rate is the rate. This is the discount rate. You understand?
Yes.
It's the rate. This is the uppercase, the. So it's not percentage. It's not rate. It's dollars. Okay?
Okay.
You must make clear distinction. They are not clear the same thing. They are not the same thing. I mean, if they are the same thing, this is rate. This is also rate. And if this is dollars, this is also dollars. No. The convention is usually the lowercase is conventionally lowercase is the rate or duration of time, right? Uppercase T will be the terminal time. That means that's the maturity. But the lowercase t means duration of time. Always the uppercase symbols are quantity, like dollar values or weight or length or physical distance, physical quantity, whereas lowercase symbols are rates. Now, so then proceeds is what the seller receives, right? Dell took this promissory note to the bank at time zero. They negotiated the sale of this promissory note, and the bank applied 5% discount rate. So the bank will take this over from Dell. They won't do it for free because Dell is taking over the risk for the next 90 days, right? So bank discounts it by 5%, so then it comes to 15.45K, and the proceeds to Dell, the seller of this, the seller, it will be the difference between the maturity value and the bank discount. So in that case, we know it's 309 309K minus 15.45K. Come on. All right. And then we can easily come to, okay. Come to 293.55. $299.55K, right? Now, which is what Dell, which is what Dell gets, it's frozen, right? So you might think, oh, Dell is losing money. No, not really. Think about it. Yeah, of course, Dell is, Dell has to pay. You cannot do it for free. You have to pay fee. Dell gets this today, and this will prevent any default. This will stave off the default. I mean, what if if they it's better than it's certainly less than 309, the full maturity value, but it's better than defaulting today. It's better than defaulting sometime next week, right? Because your cash flow next week. What if you don't have this situation? What if next week, I mean, if you didn't, right, sell the promissory note, you could run into this situation, right? If you run into this situation, you default, right? So that's how that's how it works. That's how. But the name is a simple discount or bank discount. But that's the name they use in financial mathematics. In the industry, they call it factoring. And why is it called factoring? Now think about it. In no other class, they will explain to you why it is called factoring. Only me, because I'm the only person who is interested in the origin of the terminology. In accounting class, they will just call it factoring without further explanation. And some people might, at least some students, try to rationalize. In other words, come up with some rational explanation. Oh, it must be called factoring because you are splitting. Think about it. This 309K, this 309K is discounted by this factor, right? So that must be why it is called factoring. No. That may be a very, that can be a very, in a way, it's logical, and it's logical reasoning. Oh, at least if you think that way, I commend you for using analytical thinking and logical reasoning, because there's a logic there, right? Clearly, right? Clearly, there is some you are breaking it up by some factor, right? So factoring, yeah, that's a very logical thinking. But not all the logical thinkings are always correct, because the word factoring comes from the French word la facture. And if any one of you speak French, you would know what this means. This is French for invoice. This is the French for invoice.
Yes,
Okay.
in Spanish is factura too.
Yeah. They have, in Romance languages, they have cognates. You know what cognates are, right? The words that have same etymology. They came from the same root. Yeah, in Spanish it is la factura, right? And in Italian, la fattore. That's Italian, right? And then Spanish, and they are all feminine, right? And the grammatical gender, all feminine, I believe. La factura. And even in Czech, Czechoslovakian, even in Czechoslovakian. I mean, Czechoslovakian is a totally different language group, a Slavic language. So it's like Russian, and a lot of words are similar to Russian. In Russian, in Czech, bridge is most, right? Karl most, Charles Bridge, Karl most, Legi most. I've been to Czechoslovakia years ago, and I found, very. One thing interesting is, I rented a car. So in Russian, actually, invoice would be totally different. In German, invoice is a totally different word. But in Czech, the word, I noticed it. How? Because I rented a car while I was in Prague, and but I drove. I rented a car and drove all the way down to uh, Budapest, Hungary, right? It's very nice, although European highways are very narrow. I mean, just two-lane highways. I mean, two-lane, so there's just fast lane and slow lane, and the lanes are very, very narrow. Sometimes there's a 18-wheeler, trailers, low bed trailers, right next to you driving. And in the U.S., at least, you have some gap between, you have some space between, the truck and you, but it's almost like, touching each other. It's such a, thrilling moment, but, I wouldn't do it again. But the thing is, yeah, from, Prague, I went down to Vienna, and then to Budapest, and all the way back to Prague, because I had to return the car. And when I returned the car, they gave me the invoice. How do I know? Because even in Czech it is something like this, faktur, or something like. And I instantaneously I noticed, oh, this is in. But look, when you rent a car, you pay in advance, right? You don't pay afterwards. You pay, with your credit card, you pay already in advance when you rent a car. So actually you have, your credit card receipt, right? So receiving an invoice at the end is only a formality, right? It doesn't mean, this is what you owe us, right? Invoices generally, this is what you owe us, right? This is what you owe us. That's invoice. But in case of renting a car, it's only a formality. That just means the transaction is completed. The transaction is completed. That means, right? We received the car back. We got the car back. Car's in good condition. Everything is done. I mean, the invoice amount. Because if the car has a problem, right? If a car was dented, and if there was a problem with the car upon inspection, and the invoice amount will be different, isn't it right? From my credit card receipt, amount on my credit card receipt, right? Because they will be, that means they are billing me for. But anyway, the point is, from all of these European languages, we can tell what is the origin of the word factoring. Why? First of all, think about it. This type of, financing technique, right? First of all, it wasn't the promissory note. It was actually the invoice. And even in medieval times, there was trade, right? In medieval times, there was, trading. And then when you have invoice, that means someone shipped you, someone has sent you merchandise, some kind of merchandise. And so both parties have copies, right? The original is with the shipper, right? Original is with the shipper, and the copy is with the carrier. The carrier carries the copy, and when they deliver the merchandise, they will uh, deliver the invoice to the buyer, and the buyer, that means buyer has accounts payable towards the seller, right? And then it can take some time. I mean, it's medieval time. The things travel by horse carriage, right? Things travel by horse carriage or by ship, and it can take months. It can take so whoever is holding now the the carrier has the goods. Carrier has the merchandise. So carrier is responsible for protecting that merchandise. And if the merchandise is well protected and well delivered, then uh, the the buyer will pay, but pay whom? The buyer, and there's a long distance between the buyer and the seller. So will the buyer travel all the way to the seller and pay that invoice amount? No, that's where the bank comes in. That's where the bank comes in. So the seller doesn't have to wait for the buyer to receive the merchandise and pay. The seller can uh, sell this invoice to the bank, right? The bank will buy it, but bank won't do it for free because the bank is assuming the risk from that point on, right? So the bank will discount it, and then they will pay the discounted amount. In other words, D or proceeds. They will pay that to the seller, right, of the merchandise, and then the seller gets the money, and then if the buyer receives the merchandise, then the bank will collect it from the buyer. Make sense? And then if while the merchandise is still with the carrier won't release it until um, either the bank or the buyer presents the copy or the original copy of the invoice, which matches the carrier's copy, and then the carrier will release the merchandise. Okay, that way. This type of technique developed even from the medieval times. And because they were selling the invoice, which is, in French, la facture, in Italian, la fattore, or in Spanish, la factura, think about it. They all mean invoice. And when it came to England, right? When it came to England, it got anglicized, right? It got anglicized and became the word factor. Although in English it is invoice, the technique of selling invoice and discounting invoice amount is called factoring, right? So that's the origin of the word. And knowing this, understanding this, will give you, of course, in calculating what is the discounted amount, what is the bank discount, it may not matter, but you will always wonder, why is it called factoring out of blue? Why is it called factoring? But knowing this will make you understand, oh, that's why, it's not only promissory note. Think about it. Accounts receivable. What is accounts receivable? That's basically accounts receivable is a concept. It's an idea because it's something. It's money to still receive, payment still to receive. That's accounts receivable. But it's an abstract idea only. It's a concept. Excuse me. It's a concept only. What is the physical form of accounts receivable? Physical form of accounts receivable is invoice. So then the way the invoice is being factored, right, is the same as the way the promissory notes are factored or discounted, right? And so in factoring, invoices are very relevant. It's highly relevant because without the invoices, there was no such word as factoring to begin with. You understand, right? So there was a question like that. There was a question like that in quiz 1, right? There was a question like that in quiz 1. There was a in discounting, in factoring, invoices are relevant, or invoices are relevant, invoices are irrelevant. I mean, there were questions like that. And if you understand what factoring is, then of course you would know the correct answer. Invoices are very relevant in factoring. Okay, all righty. So that's it for today. We are already out of time. 4 minutes past the hour. Any questions so far? Any questions? Any questions? All righty. If there are no more questions, I will see you guys. I wish a very great afternoon for all of you, and I will see you guys next Monday. Okay, I will not forget that it's 1 o'clock. This Monday I forgot. It is. I thought it was 2 o'clock. I will see you next Monday. Okay. Yeah, next Monday. All right. All righty. Take care, everyone.
Bye-bye.
All righty. All right. Take
Professor, have a
care.
good day.
All right. You too. You too. So I'll stop sharing and stop recording and